Breaking news coming out of Cleveland. I believe they're having their golf tournament, a golf charity event. Now, Todd Monken is speaking with the media about Myles Garrett. He spoke about Shedeur Sanders, Deshaun Watson, and how he's going to lay out these reps for the 2026 season. Now, all of this stuff is still developing. No press conference footage has been released, so we got to track the news as it's happening, similar to a live. I want to start you guys off with this clip right here.
Again, as I said, I think I anticipate there still being competition. That doesn't mean that the reps will be equal, but that's the easiest way to put it. I mean, I think we're in a good place right now with our quarterback room.
To me, logically, and we've talked about this, it makes more sense for it to be Shedeur Sanders because he's young, he's cheap. There's a chance that he could be your future quarterback, where I just don't see that from Deshaun Watson. Now, maybe he proves me wrong and he plays great this year and he gets an extension and he winds up being your guy. But that feels so unlikely given everything we've seen from Deshaun Watson since he's been here that I would think Shedeur Sanders at least has a chance to fill that role. So if I were the Browns and Todd Monken, that would be my thinking. But I think Todd is open to whoever emerges being that guy, but he wants somebody to emerge. Right? He does not want to take this thing as deep into training camp as it could go. You know, he's talked about hoping to have it decided at the end of the spring. I just don't know how realistic that is, especially given, Shedeur's only in his second year. So it's going to take some time. It's taking time to learn a new offense. I don't know if you want to rush into a decision and decide, when minicamp ends June 11th. Like, we know it's going to be Deshaun Watson's going to be the guy we give all the reps to in training camp. To me, that feels like a disservice to Shedeur because he's young. He didn't get a lot of reps last year. And if Watson gets hurt, which he's gotten hurt plenty of times since he's been here, all of a sudden you're putting Shedeur Sanders in, and he hasn't gotten those reps with the ones. He hasn't gotten a lot of time because you committed to Watson too early. So I think you need to take this competition at least a week or two into training camp before you make a final decision and really give somebody the bulk of the reps.
All of the guys that are in there are working hard, and I like the level of talent that we have in there. But the next 6 days will go a long way into how we go into fall camp. And we'll have in our minds, I think, where we're at in every position. Every position, you have a form of a depth chart in your mind, but and maybe it won't be locked in, but we'll certainly the reps will have to get distributed differently once we get to camp. His progressions, getting the ball out, his understanding of concepts, I think he's really, really come a long way.
The defense was able to have a couple heads up.
Nobody expected Todd Monken to say it like that. At a charity golf event, not a press conference, not a national broadcast, the Cleveland Browns head coach stood in front of a few cameras and quietly dropped one of the most telling statements of the entire NFL offseason. The reps will have to be distributed differently. That's it. 6 words, and they changed everything. Because if you've been paying attention to Cleveland, if you understand what this franchise has been through, what this locker room needs, and what this quarterback room actually looks like right now, you know that statement isn't just about practice reps, that's about who runs this offense in 2026. And here's the question nobody's fully answered yet. Is Shedeur Sanders already the guy?
To me, logically, and we've talked about this, it makes more sense for it to be Shedeur Sanders. Because he's young, he's cheap. There's a chance that he could be your future quarterback, where I just don't see that from Deshaun Watson. Now, maybe he proves me wrong and he plays great this year and he gets an extension and he winds up being your guy. But that feels so unlikely given everything we've seen from Deshaun Watson since he's been here that I would think Shedeur Sanders at least has a chance.
Did Shedeur Sanders' QB1 season just officially start for 2026? Listen, we found out yesterday from Albert Breer, wrote an article on Sports Illustrated, how the Browns' interview process included a 6-question assessment. One of those 6 questions specifically asked candidates how they would develop quarterback Shedeur Sanders. He was the only quarterback specifically mentioned within that 6-question essay portion. So the Browns clearly needed to hear from candidates what the plan was to get Shedeur Sanders to that next level. And then today, the video comes out from Todd Monken coming into the Cleveland Browns facility in Berea for the first time as the Browns head coach. And who's there to come in and meet him? Shedeur Sanders came over from overseas on his trip to meet the new head coach. And as soon as he walks in the room, Todd Monken gives him a big hug and says, "Hey, we tried to draft your ass last year, for God's sake." It all worked out. So clearly, the rumors, the reports that the Ravens were looking to draft Shedeur Sanders last year were definitely true. And also, it's worth noting that Todd Monken also reportedly tried to recruit Shedeur Sanders to Georgia back when he was the offensive coordinator for the Bulldogs in college football. So there's a history between Todd Monken and Shedeur Sanders, and I think that is a very positive thing. It's encouraging to see that the head coach not only believes that Shedeur Sanders can be the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, but also has already tried to coach him in the past. So that's encouraging. I think it's a great sign moving forward for Shedeur Sanders and Todd Monken as the Browns head coach in 2026.
Let's back up, because to understand why Todd Monken's words hit so differently, you have to understand what Cleveland has been living through. This franchise spent 3 years tied to Deshaun Watson, a $230 million fully guaranteed contract, the most expensive bet in NFL history. And for 3 years, it was painful. Injuries, inconsistency, a fan base that watched the seasons disappear before they even started. And then, something shifted. In the 2025 draft, Cleveland selected Shedeur Sanders, the son of Dion, the most hyped quarterback prospect in years, the kid who played through chaos at Colorado and still found ways to make throws that made scouts' jaws drop. And now, Watson is still on the roster. So heading into 2026, Cleveland is sitting on one of the most fascinating, most awkward, most emotionally loaded quarterback situations in football. You have Watson, expensive, proven at times, but fragile, and carrying weight, not just physical, but psychological, that the whole league can see. And you have Shedeur, unproven, young, hungry, and carrying the name, the energy, and the swagger of someone who doesn't believe any room is too big for him. That's the backdrop. That's why this statement matters.
I was never assured of anything when I took the job, other than once I signed my contract and whatever my contract said, that's what I was assured. And no matter what any of us coaches sign up for, is we show up every day, we coach the guys who are in the building like we've done since we've been here. That hasn't changed. I was assured that when I took the job.
So this is Todd Monken, man. He seemed like he ain't with the okie dokie stuff that Andrew Berry.
So let's break down what Monken actually said, word for word, because this stuff matters. He anticipates there still being competition. That doesn't mean the reps will be equal. Read that again. He's not saying Deshaun Watson is the starter. He's not saying Shedeur wins the job. He's saying someone is getting more reps. And when a head coach tells you the reps won't be equal, that's not neutrality. That's a lean. Then he says the next 6 days of minicamp will go a long way in determining where they're at. 6 days. That's his window. He's already watching. He's already evaluating. There's already a mental depth chart forming in his mind. And then came the most revealing moment of the entire presser. A reporter asked Monken directly, "Were you assured Deshaun Watson would be here when you took the job?" His answer, "No. I was never assured of anything when I took this job, other than what my contract said." That's a head coach publicly distancing himself from a $230 million quarterback. That's not a small thing. That's a signal. And signals are everything in the NFL. The analyst on the broadcast broke it down simply. Shedeur is young, he's cheap, and he could be the future. Watson, statistically and physically, has given them very little reason to believe he's the answer. And if Watson gets hurt, which has happened before, and Shedeur hasn't been getting reps with the ones, that's organizational negligence. The Cleveland fan base is split, half still holding out hope Watson flips a switch, the other half has already mentally handed the keys to Shedeur. But here's what people missed. Monken didn't just talk about the quarterback battle, he talked about Myles Garrett. And when asked if he was assured Garrett would be on the team, he gave the same answer. No. I wasn't assured of that either. That's a head coach publicly distancing himself from a $230 million quarterback. That's not a small thing. That's a signal. And signals are everything in the NFL. Now, here's where this gets really interesting. Think about what it takes to be Deshaun Watson right now. You've been through legal battles, you've been suspended, you've been injured, you've come back, tried to play, and watched your own franchise draft a quarterback in the first round. And now your own head coach, the man whose job depends partly on yours, is publicly saying he wasn't assured you'd even be there. That's not a supportive environment for a struggling quarterback. That's pressure, deep institutional pressure. And contrast that with Shedeur Sanders. This is a kid who walked into Colorado and turned it into a national conversation, who had NFL scouts camping out to watch his practices, who entered the draft as one of the most talked about prospects in years, who fell in the draft, which, by the way, added fuel to his fire. You think Shedeur Sanders woke up the morning after the draft embarrassed? No, he woke up motivated. There's a specific kind of psychological energy that comes from being underestimated, from falling further than people expected. Shedeur has that energy right now, and every rep in that practice facility feels like proof of something. Meanwhile, Watson has to fight through the psychological weight of everything that's happened, the money, the expectations, the injuries, the discourse. Confidence is contagious. Doubt is too. And right now, watch the body language when these two quarterbacks take the field. Watch who the receivers gravitate toward after good plays. Watch who the offensive linemen are encouraging. Locker rooms always know before the depth chart is announced. And here's the thing about franchises. They always know something before the public does. Think about what Cleveland is doing behind the scenes. The roster moves, the marketing, the jersey sales. The way this team has talked about Shedeur versus the way they've talked about Watson all offseason. When a franchise is invested in a quarterback's future, truly invested, you feel it everywhere. You see his face on billboards. You see the team tweeting his highlights. You see the front office building around him, protecting him, setting him up for a long career. What are you seeing from Cleveland right now? And Monken's quotes, especially the one about reps being distributed differently, are not going to be ignored by the front office. Andrew Berry heard that. Jimmy Haslam heard that. This isn't just a coach speaking freely at a golf tournament. This is an organizational communication. Calculated or not, it's out there. The fact that no press conference footage was officially released, that this was a select media event, and these quotes still got out, that's not an accident. Information gets out when someone wants it to. So what does all of this mean for the 2026 season? Here's the reality. Cleveland is not a playoff contender if Deshaun Watson starts and performs like he has the past 2 seasons. That's just math. That's just football. But Cleveland could be interesting, could be a story if Shedeur Sanders gets legitimate reps, earns legitimate trust, and shows the organization and the fan base what he can do under center with real NFL talent around him. The Browns aren't rebuilding, but they're not contenders either. They're in that dangerous middle space where you either find your franchise quarterback and leap forward, or you don't and you keep drifting. Monken knows this. Berry knows this. Haslam definitely knows this. Shedeur winning this competition isn't just about 2026. It's about the next decade of Cleveland Browns football. It's about finally having a young quarterback to build around. It's about giving a fan base that's been through so much heartbreak, so many false starts, something to genuinely believe in. And Watson, if he wins the competition, then everything I just said becomes the hot take that aged poorly. But right now, in this moment, in this building, the momentum is not in his favor. We started with 6 words. The reps will have to be distributed differently. And now here we are, asking questions about the future of a franchise, about a young quarterback who was doubted and drafted anyway, about a head coach who walked into one of the NFL's most complicated situations and immediately started drawing lines. Todd Monken didn't come to Cleveland to manage a controversy. He came to build a winner. And the way he's talking, careful, deliberate, almost surgically chosen, suggests he already knows where this is going. The Browns may not have officially named a starter, but the signals are speaking loud enough. And suddenly, the quarterback nobody expected to win this job might be exactly the reason Cleveland finally has a reason to believe again.